Hello, everybody, and welcome to CTV, the show that you don't know what's going to be on. But tonight we're going to do quantum interference phenomenon. And I think that to help us on the journey, we have our executive producer, Mark Zabotowski, and the soul of CTV, Stephen Durst here, poet extraordinaire. So what is quantum interference phenomenon? We're going to get to that towards the end of the show. But in order to talk about this book that I just finished, Quantum Interference, John Gribbon's From Colossus to Qubits, Computing with Quantum Cats is the name of the book. If we could put that up on the copy stand, that'd be great. That's the main book, John, the whole book. Just put the whole book up there. This deals with how did we get here? How did we get to quantum interference phenomenon? And it starts with a guy named Alan Turing. Alan Mathiasson Turing. There's the book, Computing with Quantum Cats. You can see the kitty on the front. From Colossus to Qubits. Now, it doesn't look like much, but this word qubits is going to affect every single one of us in the next 10 years in ways we don't even know about yet. Because right now the military and the corporations are investing heavily into this phenomenon, the qubit phenomenon. But let's go through a brief history of how we got to the quantum interference phenomenon devices, what we call SQUID, superconducting quantum interference devices. Now, somebody called in last show we had, and they said, Blue, you got to dumb down this show. People aren't going to understand what you're talking about. But we refuse on this show to dumb it down. I don't care what the public schools tell us to do. And we're going to plow ahead with something pretty heavy, so tighten your seatbelts. If we could have that first picture up there, number one, John. This is a picture of Alan Mathiasson Turing. And they just did a movie with Benedict Cumberbatch about his life story. And he was one of these sort of odd duck guys that loved to do puzzles. He was a real puzzle freak when he was a kid. And he wrote a paper called On Computable Numbers, because he realized that certain things could be computed and certain things couldn't be computed. And what he wanted to do was find out whether a machine could automatically tell whether a number was computable or not. There's the guy. Now this is the guy they did the movie about.
That's
Benedict Cumberbatch plays this guy right here.
Okay, that's the actual Turing. Okay.
Yep.
Alan Turing.
Alan Mathiasson Turing. Now
He is a homosexual martyr, by the way.
He is the designer of the first electronic computer, but he did it in such a different way from the way we crunch numbers now. He did it with incredibly subtle software. And he used machines that relied upon the ability of the software programmer to program the machine to solve puzzles, mainly breaking codes from the Nazis in the Second World War. And they had a machine that was considered unbreakable called the Enigma machine. And Alan Turing invented a machine called the Colossus. And towards the end of the war, they could intercept and decode seemingly unbreakable Nazi codes, even the private ones that used the 10-wheel computer from the Nazis instead of the Enigma machine, which had 6 wheels. They had one that had 10 wheels on it that was for Adolf Hitler to special people, to direct line, kind of the red phone. And they were able to break this by how? Not because the machines were defective, but because the programmers were defective. And people would put in easily patternable designs by making mistakes with their programming that he could study, and then he could break the code by breaking the programmer's mistakes. And it was pretty fascinating. If you get a chance, if we could see that roll in, John, when you're ready. This is the movie Benedict Cumberbatch is in, and it's called The Imitation Game. And it's out right now, I think. I know they're promoting it. So
Here's that roll.
let's take a look at it.
Is this going to get us knocked off YouTube again?
This is off of the
Speak a
internet.
word of what I'm about to show you, you will be executed for high treason.
It's beautiful. It's the greatest encryption device in history, and the Germans use it for all communications.
Everyone thinks Enigma is unbreakable.
Let me try, and we'll know for sure.
Mr. Turing, do you know how many died because of it?
I don't.
3. While we've been having this conversation.
Gentlemen, meet Mr. Turing.
We used to work together then. I'm afraid these men would only slow me down.
Popular at school, were you?
We're short on staff.
We get more staff then. You have 6 minutes to complete the task.
Is that even possible? No, it takes me 8. 5 minutes and 34 seconds.
You said to do it in under 6. What is it that we're really doing?
We're going to break an unbreakable Nazi code and win the war.
Oh.
You know, to pull off this irascible genius routine, one actually has to be a genius.
I'm designing a machine that will allow us to break every message, every day, instantly.
You're going to need all the help you can get, and they are not going to help you if they do not like you.
Have you decrypted a single German message?
You will.
Never understand the importance of what I am creating here.
Our patience has expired.
No!
If you fire Helen, well, then you'll have to fire me.
Me too.
And me.
It better bloody work.
Helen, you do not have to do this alone.
What are you doing? What's going on?
The Navy thinks that one of us is a Soviet spy.
You've got more secrets than the best of them.
What if I don't fancy her in that way?
Can't tell anyone, Alan. It's illegal.
I'm just a mathematician.
Sometimes it is the people who no one imagines anything of who do the things that no one can imagine.
All right, that was the first electronic computer. It was not the first computer by any means, but it was the first that used electronic switching devices, which we call binary codes now, in order to set up programs and algorithms that could be used to break codes. So that was the first guy. That was the main man. He was like a singular genius, sort of like Tesla in a way.
Who gave his name to the Turing test of artificial intelligence.
If you could show that picture of the People's Magazine, they do a little in the overhead. They show another picture of it, but from there...
The People's Magazine, or is it People Magazine?
People Magazine. People
it's not a
Magazine
Marxist
just
magazine.
has another advertisement for that on it, so it doesn't matter. If we get it up, we don't. Let's go to number 2 there, if you could, John. A guy named John von Neumann. He was a Hungarian-born mathematician that moved to the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton University and worked with Albert Einstein and others. And he was the American equivalent of this Alan Turing. And he, instead of using the subtle software programming, what he did was he created these massive machines, the Enoch machines that were used, these punch cards, and then sold all these secrets after the war to IBM, became a very rich man. But he also worked on the atomic bomb along with the father of the atomic bomb. What was his name? Teller.
Oppenheimer? Oh,
Teller.
Yeah.
I thought he was the father of the hydrogen
This
bomb.
is a picture of him right now, John von Neumann. This is basically where the corporations started to get in on the ground level and the military. And they are way ahead of the normal person in this area. That's why I say quantum computers are already built. They're already being used. They've got supposedly unbreakable codes that would take millions of years for a normal binary computer to break, but they can do it with these quantum computers in 4 minutes. Unbelievable. And there's a thing coming up called the singularity, which is when, supposedly by 2013, Ray Kurzweil says that the computers are
Last year?
so strong that we won't be able to understand the algorithms anymore. It'll take machines to understand other machines' algorithms. We will become the second most intelligent thing on the planet when the singularity occurs.
So Ray Kurzweil predicted that for last year?
No, he predicted for 2030.
Oh, 2030.
And that movie Transcendence kind of hits on some of the Ray Kurzweil's idea that we may be able to program ourselves into computers. Because, you know, it comes down to what's consciousness anyway.
Will that make the computers better, or will it make us worse?
Well, there's a good point.
Well, in a sense, you know, perhaps after you're biologically dead, there's this kind of consciousness robot zombie that continues, you know. That's you, except that you're not there anymore.
Well, we're going to get
just mostly
in
dead.
later to the superpositional and the spooky action and the distance stuff. But right now, they're just using regular binary computers, like Johnny von Neumann and Alan Turing, and inventing. And so we're up to about 1970 when they start noticing that on the quantum mechanical level, there's these interference patterns. If we could put up number 3 there, it's just a picture of a double slit experiment. Now, if you look at this, it looks like they start out with a blank screen at the top, but by shooting electrons through a double slit, you eventually end up with a wave-like pattern at the bottom. And they're wondering, how is this possible? Because normal particles, if you shot them through double slits, would make 2 piles. But what they've found out is that as the electrons, or this is the theory anyway, as they're passing through these slits, the wave interaction affects and cancel out other effects from the other electrons going through the other slit, and you end up with this wave pattern. This was used in early quantum computing by Johnny von Neumann to write a paper that basically dismissed all of the, what they called hidden variables theories, which is what we're going to eventually get to in a minute. But for years, people wouldn't touch hidden variable theories because if we could go to number 4 there, John, there was a man named David Bohm. He was a sort of rebel physicist, and he wrote a book called Intrinsic and Extrinsic Realities. And what he said, and basically, is that we have, okay, this guy, first guy's John Bell, but the guy with the dark horn-rimmed glasses on the right there is David Bohm. I first became acquainted with him because he did a lot of conversations with J. Krishnamurti, and we watched a lot of their tapes. He was very interested in the nature of the quiet mind, or the quieting, what they call the end of psychological time, as being similar to the quantum interference patterns. Before there's the action, there is the stillness. The stillness is not involved in time, but the actions are involved in time. Let's just to give a little bit deeper thing, if John can put up that roll-in from NOVA about the quantum interference patterns, it gives you an idea just how crazy some of this stuff is and how these physicists today are working to understand something that seems so counterintuitive to our normal everyday life. Not that far from when the sun went around the earth in a lot of people's minds, because in naive realism, it seems like the sun goes around the earth, doesn't it? But now we know, or we have a deeper understanding of it, and of the spin of the planet, the spin of the galaxy, all this sort of spinning effect, the Coriolis effect, creates a closer picture of the universe than we had before, even though it's counterintuitive. You know, and that's what's happening here with John. If we could put that number 4 up again, John Bell. So we got Einstein on one side and we got the quantum mechanics people on the other side, and they come up with this idea of first Johnny von Neumann says there's no hidden variables, then David Bohm rebels against it, writes a paper talking about different dimensional realities, 10 dimensions and 1 of time, 10 space dimensions. And the majority of these space dimensions, 6 of them, are curled up within themselves, and to such a degree they realistically vanish from our universe because they act. Yeah, here, let's see this.
Einstein did not want to go. A direction that sharply diverged from the absolute definitive predictions that were the hallmark of classical physics.
If you asked Einstein or other physicists at the time what it was that distinguished physics from all kind of flaky speculation, they would have said it's that we can predict things with certainty. And quantum mechanics seem to pull the rug out from under that.
One test in particular, which would come to be known as the double slit experiment, exposed quantum mysteries like no other. If you're looking for a description of reality based on certainty, your expectations would be shattered. We can get a pretty good feel for the double slit experiment and how dramatically it alters our picture of reality by carrying out a similar experiment, not on the scale of tiny particles, but on the scale of more ordinary objects, like those you'd find here in a bowling alley. But first, I need to make a couple of adjustments to the lane. You'd expect that if I roll a few of these balls down the lane, they'll either be stopped by the barrier or pass through one or the other slit and hit the screen at the back. And in fact, that's just what happens. Those balls that make it through always hit the screen directly behind either the left slit or the right slit. The double slit experiment was much like this, except instead of bowling balls, you use electrons, which are billions of times smaller. You can picture them like this. Let's see what happens if I throw a bunch of these balls. When electrons are hurled at the two slits, something very different happens on the other side. Instead of hitting just two areas, the electrons land all over the detector screen, creating a pattern of stripes, including some right between the two slits, the very place you'd think would be blocked. So, what's going on? Well, to physicists, even in the 1920s, this pattern could mean only one thing. Waves. Waves do all kinds of interesting things. Things that bowling balls would never do. They can split. They can combine. If I sent a wave of water through the double slits, it would split in two, and then the two sets of waves would intersect. Their peaks and valleys would combine, getting bigger in some places, smaller in others, and sometimes they cancel each other out. With the height of the water corresponding to brightness on the screen, the peaks and valleys would create a series of stripes and what's known as an interference pattern. So, how could electrons, which are particles, form that pattern? How could a single electron end up in places a wave would go?
Particles are particles, waves are waves. How can a particle be a wave? Unless you give up the idea that it's a particle and think, aha, this thing that I thought was a particle was actually a wave. A wave in an ocean? That's not a particle. The ocean is made out of particles, but the waves in the ocean are not particles.
That's good. We're not.
That's why I don't like the internet roll-ins. Somehow they have to be put in a can and then brought from the internet rather than playing it live. It's just trouble for TV.
What we're seeing here, the implications are what we call the quantum interference phenomenon. See, the normal bowling ball phenomenon makes two holes, like we normally think it would. But the quantum interference phenomenon is that on a certain level, everything's interacting with everything else, and especially electrons.
So this is that's quantum interference.
That's part of it.
Okay.
But
is
as
an
we'll
example
see,
of it?
as we'll see later
was
on,
that an example of it? The what was happening to the electrons?
it's definitely an interference pattern, right? And it's counterintuitive.
But it's not on the quantum level yet.
Yeah, electrons are quantum entities.
Okay.
Let's put that picture up, number 4, if you could, John. John Bell again, because we want to talk about, no, number 4. Number 4, John, the other one, the last one. John Bell and David Bohm. This guy, John Bell, was another rebel physicist, and he came up with an idea of how can we test the quantum interference phenomenon. And what he designed was a experiment where we have what they call entangled electrons, where one is a positive, one is a negative, and that no matter how you separate the two electrons from each other, instantly over. Okay, there's John Bell. He's had a thing called the Bell's theorem.
Bell is the guy on the right.
Bell is the guy on the left.
Left, sorry.
Yeah, the guy with the tie on is David Bohm. And then John Bell. And these guys were totally rejected in the day until they could actually demonstrate it with a machine that was able to measure the amount of time it took for rotation of one entangled electron to change its polarity while flying away from the other electron at the speed of light. And they found out that they changed instantly. So what that showed was that physics was non-local. And what do we mean by non-local? It means that Einstein called it spooky action at a distance.
A particle, they could end up separated, by galaxies.
Yeah.
And when you would change the condition to one somehow, you'd actually, they say they know that it changes another particle at it can be at an incredibly, they can make it very distant.
It could be anywhere in the universe.
But it could be
theory.
anywhere.
We say, well, that's impossible, right? This is what they originally thought was impossible.
There's a dimension of unity to these things that makes it all, distance not matter.
Well, what we're going to find out is, as we get into deeper and deeper understandings of quantum phenomenon, that the entanglement of these two electrons can eventually be used to create what's called a qubit. A qubit is a quantum bit, and it resides in a what they call a superpositional state. This is what John Bell said, was that we can have a state. Edwin Schrödinger invented an experiment called Schrödinger's cat. That's the name where they got quantum cats. Computing with Quantum Cats, the name of the book, was from Edwin Schrödinger's cat, where he said if you sent a cat up in a rocket ship and had a device on Earth where we could push a button and it would expose a radioactive isotope or poisonous gas, the cat would either be alive or dead, 50-50 chance of whether the isotope was inert or whether it would flash a radiation and kill the cat. And they said until we send another observer up, the cat would reside in a superpositional state. And a superpositional state just means that it's both alive and dead simultaneously.
Both realities are happening unless someone sees it and participates.
Well, this was the idea, was that they used to think that if an observer were to come along and collapse the wave function, that you would end up with a particular reality that could be decisive. But what we're finding out is that all of these phenomena in our universe are intertwined with each other. See, so we seem pretty alive right now, right? But where is the life? How do you put a cup of life in front of you as opposed to a cup of death? Maybe this coffee is death, I don't know. But
well, we're moving along on a kind of ray of time where time travelers stuck on a particular experience of time. That's our reality. That's where we're alive right now.
Well, let's get into this quantum time for a second. Do you know what quantum time is? You ever heard of quantum time?
No.
Quantum time is the amount of time it takes for a photon to travel the Planck length, named after Max Planck. He was one of the pioneers of quantum mechanics, and he said basically that a millionth of a centimeter, or 10 to the negative 43 zeros, 43 zeros in front of this, is the smallest physical size that can exist in our universe before it falls into a black hole. Yeah. So quantum time is 10 to the minus 43 seconds. Almost no time at all, right?
It's a very small time scale.
And that's what they use in these supercomputers to measure and use quantum mechanics to measure probability theory against whatever it is they want to simulate. In fact, the show we did not too long ago says that we, on Earth here, are simulations of a giant quantum computer that we call the universe. See, that's why a lot of mystics.
It's as if it were a giant computer. It seems to be, something that has some kind of reality generating awareness. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, ask John if he can put up that little piece of paper that I just drew a picture of, and this will give you an idea on a visual level of what they're talking about with quantum time. We're saying that we're being influenced. This is what, might as well get to number 5, David Douche in the multiverse, if we could. Okay, there's the picture. Now, if you look at this picture, you see a little dot in the middle there. It says ab hot. That means absolutely hot. That's the compression of all the stuff in our universe, all the dark matter, everything compressed down into this infinitely dense, super hot spot that curves upward into a double hemisphere. Now, doesn't that look like the double hemisphere of the brain to some degree?
From the top.
Now, if you look at the outer rim where I've darkened the line a little bit, that's absolute cold. That's absolute zero. Now, this picture here, if you think about it, is quantum time. This is the very foundation of our physical universe. You go from an absolutely hot spot, which we call the Big Bang.
Okay.
Now, and then you go to an absolutely cold spot, which we call after all of the heat has left our universe, it enters a absolutely cold space.
Dense, but
hydrogen, frozen hydrogen, all the protons have decayed, everything is decayed. We found out about this from the cosmologist from the University of Michigan. He was talking about, now our universe that we're in right now would be about halfway up one of these bumps. See, because when we look back, we see what? Quasars, which are basically supernovas, continually exploding, which is very similar to an absolutely hot spot.
Sure.
The curvature of the universe. If we look off into the distance, the universe curves beyond the event horizon. So we're entering and exiting a black hole in this sense until, according to the physicists from the University of Michigan, we reach the absolute cold state, which is on the very outside.
You know, we don't hear of, we've heard that astronomy gets to a certain point in distance and time and it sees a kind of wall of energy, and beyond that they can't see anything.
That would be the dense hot state.
But I haven't heard of,
the frozen.
You don't see that because it's not showing up?
Well, they're saying that their supercomputers seem to model
that it's there.
If the universe continues to expand and disperse the energy out, that there would eventually be this, the stars would all burn out, and then there would be these states they call proton decay, and they would be like going across the top of the round thing here until absolutely all the protons have decayed until they're absolutely frozen into frozen hydrogen. Now, the funny thing about this thing is that it's not moving. See, it's like a fractal in the sense that it doesn't move. We move through it with consciousness. Seems to be David Douche's idea of the multiverse, and that our consciousness is interacting, and that what they're interacting with these different dimensions. And the most recent theory of everything from the physicists is what they call the M theory, membrane theory.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And membrane theory is basically says that what we can see in a electromagnetic wavelength resides within a certain membrane of reality. And right next to that membrane is another membrane. All right, we can go back to this. But because we're on the electromagnetic spectrum that can only see along this wavelength, we can't see these other dimensions. See, they're right next to us. They say they're 1/25 of a centimeter away from us, but there's an infinite series of dimensions. This is what David Deutsch, we can put his picture up, John, that's number 5. He's saying that this quantum interaction phenomenon are the best example we have of the multiverse. And
we just saw him for a moment?
Okay, we saw him for a moment.
There he is again?
Yeah, there he is. This guy says that the multiverse is we are able now, because we have quantum, the ability to manipulate quantum entities like electrons and photons, to entangle these within a computer. And the computer isolates these entangled electrons in what they call qubits. Now there's 2 ways that they're working on it, but the main one is an extension of computing that's already being done with silicon being laid down in layers. And then what they can do is they can get a trap through magnetic fields to isolate ions and protons and electrons to interact with each other on what they call a superpositional state. This is Schrodinger's cat's idea. The superpositional state is different from the zeros and ones of a normal computer because it takes the 0 and the 1 and the 0, 1, which is what David Deutsch is saying is that's an interaction amongst these different, and this is the theory of quantum gravity, it's an interaction through gravity of which can penetrate these different membranes. Electromagnetic energy can't, but gravity energy can, and the gravity waves reveal that just not too far from our universe is another universe with
that becomes very interesting because there are people who say that the Nazi machine in World War II, the Bell thing, was actually originally intended to be a time machine, but it ended up that there were other prototypes, at least, or maybe even operational models of flying saucer type craft that were employing the anti-gravity effect that was observed in the not entirely successful time machine.
Right. Well, if quantum gravity is right, and there's people at NASA that are working on developing spaceships that can ride quantum gravity waves, they're a remnant of the inflationary period at the end of the Big Bang. There was a period of less than a second where the reality that we're in went from that little infinitesimally hot point to a size object the size of our solar system within 1 second, which transcends the speed of light by many multiples. And that's what these guys are dealing with. They're dealing with entangled quantum entities that reveal a multiple universe approach. And how do they know this? Because when they use quantum computers, the idea is that all of these parallel universes are lined up so that somebody in these other universes is using the computer, and we're computing through the entanglement of superpositional electrons. See, that sounds crazy, but it's the phenomenon of the entanglement that creates the superposition that allows all of these different membranes to line up in a parallel so that the computers can use all of the computers from all the different dimensions all at once, instantly, and solve unbreakable code problems. See? And also can create supposedly unbreakable codes, because when you get into this state of superpositional, you have virtually a dual, it's sort of like a yin-yang thing. Every time you're moving from one yang, you're moving into another yin kind of thing.
Was the Turing device, was it working on a quantum level, actually?
Well, if you use what they call a Turing device is simply an ability to compute numbers. So your cell phone is a Turing device. Turing wanted to separate things that could be computed from things that couldn't be computed. So something that can't be computed is like, I'm telling you the truth. Oh, no, that can be computed. No, I'm telling you, everything I tell you is a lie.
Now listen to this. I'm lying.
Yeah.
That's when these Star Trek robots freak out and they ask for help from Norman, and Norman's confused too, and they all have like smoke coming out of their ears and stuff.
Right. It's what they call quantum parallelism that talks about the multiverse as being able to be used as a quantum computer, utilizing the multiverse and all these different dimensions, I guess you might call it. And you know, the really bizarre thing is that it works. They get this incredible what they call decoherence, and the coherence only lasts for a few millionths of a second at the present time. And they've created these devices they call squids. Did you ever hear that?
You mentioned them.
The squid is a superconducting quantum interference device. And they've got examples of it in laboratories right now, where an object the size of a wedding ring can be in two states simultaneously. And they can use that as a microchip to quantum compute using the entanglement of the qubits from different electrons in what they call quantum dots. That's one of the layered effects, where they can isolate these quantum entities like an electron. See, right now we use electrons all the time. I mean, all the lights around us are all electrons and photons and electricity traveling through the medium. But what the quantum computer does is it isolates these quantum entities in an entangled state and then feeds in their information that they want to compute. And because they're entangled in all these different dimensions that are multiverses, seemingly the impossible is possible.
Because they're drawing on the combined effect of these things in the various brains.
It's as if, for all practical purposes, what they call FAP.
Like going over to the neighbors to borrow a cup of sugar, but instead they're borrowing time from another timeline, the time in which to do the computations.
That's right. See, they're saying that each one of these membranes has a separate history, and that we are no longer able to isolate the physics of our reality into localities anymore. Literally everything we do is entwined with all these other dimensions.
Apparently there are an infinite number of these universes that are fungible. In other words, they're they have the same laws as this universe and could be could replace this universe the same way one $10 bill replaces another $10 bill.
Yeah.
Because the gross historical events will all be the same. It's only on the subatomic particle level is their indeterminacy.
Well,
of course, there's also an infinite number of universes that aren't fungible, that don't have the same laws as this universe either. This is two infinite subsets, or actually an infinite number of.
Well, that's called the many-world
subsets.
theory.
So,
yeah, that there may be, the further away we get from this universe, the more their laws of physics may change, and
or their historical parallels become less and less parallel. It seems that as you go further away, in a way you could see events kind of having their own forward-moving family tree, and as you get very distant relatives very quickly, but some of them are still very close, if that makes any sense.
Well, one of the things I liked about the computer phenomenon they call fractals was that the fractals didn't move. See, they would put this computer code in there, and the computer would start doing these paisley print-like images that would come through, and it seemed like you were flying through this incredibly changing, kaleidoscopic, psychedelic world. But Arthur C. Clarke did the tape and said basically that there was no movement to the fractal at all. We were moving the computer through the fractal. Now, if you take that twin hemisphere thing with absolute hot and absolute cold, and you isolate that from time, then...
Time to dumb it down.
Uh-oh.
We have a caller?
Oh, Rick. Yeah, let's talk to Rick if we can.
We are taking calls. This live show. This is December 3rd, 2014. This is CTV. Hello.
Yeah, Rick.
Yes, well, I'm the caller you told you to dumb it down, and I'll say it again. And let me tell you why you've already dumbed it down. Do you know why?
Why?
Everything you're saying, if you really want to get it to the absolute esoteric level where nobody will know what the hell you're talking about, you'd say it in mathematics. But my guess is you guys probably don't know how to do that, do you? So you're already dumbing it down because you're just doing it in a narrative.
Yeah, we're popularizers.
But again, you know, not only does this not have anything to do with advancing the revolution, as our esteemed founder Frank said, but I don't know what this has to do with anything. I mean, this is just so esoteric. It has
Why would corporations and the military being put so much money into it right now if it had nothing to do with anything?
The military is putting money into this.
Yes,
into what?
I'm sure
into
they
what?
are. But, you know, in fact, I think it's a known fact that they are. But to me, I think how it does relate to anything at all is that there's a reality to our actual reality that in terms of technology and what people should be understanding about actual technology and close technological capabilities and sequestered technologies even, that this becomes certainly a revolutionary topic. You know, society would certainly be transformed in a positive direction if we would actually use the technologies that we really have available to ourselves and you know, got the fossil fuel industry and its politics off of our backs. For sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Mark. That's not what you guys are talking about. You're talking about things like the theory of relativity and the unified field theory and the special theory of relativity, the general theory of relativity, and you know, most people aren't going to know what the heck you're talking about.
Well, you know, Rick, we aren't talking about relativity. We're talking about quantum mechanics. Man.
Well, okay, but you know what I'm saying. It's in that realm that
There's certainly a use to expanding one's imagination. You're not going to find a new world if everyone is always thinking in the same ruts. But people go, oh, free market capitalism is the only way anything could possibly work. Because their imaginations are stunted because they're dumbed down in school, for instance.
Yeah, Rick.
Well, our media has become dumber. I think you have to agree with that in general.
Dumb and dumber.
Our mass media.
And not only that, but we're moving into an era, Rick, now where a lot of the so-called impossibilities are becoming possible. And if you throw enough money at it, like the military is doing, and the corporations are doing, they're not doing this for fun. This is life and death. They're in a life and death struggle with other countries to understand this. And if we can't talk about it here, we've got to get people that have these kind of capabilities out there to understand and maybe use a little wisdom to stop them building the next hydrogen bomb, or stop them using some kind of Tesla death ray.
Bomb.
You know.
Yeah, they're going to open a new Guantanamo Bay and put all the terrorists in parallel universes where they have no rights at all.
You know, a lot of people play music, Rick, that don't know.
Hold on here. I think most of those terrorists are already in a parallel universe. And,
well, they are. That's a good example of a psychological parallel universe, is the terrorist mindset.
Yeah, but I'm not sure it has anything to do with
that's what politics is.
Quantum physics. It's
just
Islam is correct and kill all the people that don't believe in Islam. Oh, and by the way, if you're Sunni, kill all the Shiites. If you're Shiites, kill all the Sunnis, and it just goes. You know, it's just destructive behavior, frankly, by primates, as another panelist used to call the human race, which is what we are. We're primates that speak and wear clothes, but we're pretty violent primates. And maybe rather than saying the reason we treat each other this way and the environment is not so much because we're sinners, which is what the Christian worldview would have, but maybe it's just that we're very smart, but maybe too smart for our own good.
Maybe we're more chimpanzee than gorilla.
Maybe we should dumb ourselves down a little more.
I got news for you. The Pandora's box has been opened, and we have got to either sink or swim right now. And if, you know, I can't see sticking my head in the sand as being an answer to
that's not the
the
point,
military-industrial complex having this kind of information.
No, I know that, Blue, but what I'm saying is what you're saying is so esoteric that it's just not going to be
It is. Within 10 years, you will have a quantum computer in your house of some sort. Whether
In
it's
your
a
bathroom.
cell
I don't even have a
phone or-
computer at all right now, and I don't think, a quantum computer. Now, what would that do for us? Do you think?
The advantage of the quantum computer is that you're able to actually penetrate the membranes of the multiverse and use all of these different.
Now, there's a real practical.
Well, I got news for you,
does
Rick.
sound
There
funny
are
sometimes.
codes that can only be broken with a quantum computer.
Only codes?
Yeah, like people that send messages and code.
In a practical sense, it would make your computer much more powerful. I mean, incredibly powerful device, and
By
perhaps-
maybe 1,000,000 times? You don't think that's going to have some kind of social implications?
I understand that, but Mark, I've always looked up to you as being the most sensible member of the organization. Do you really think all this has any relevance?
Yes. This is an interesting topic, and I see
It's interesting. I'm not denying that.
I see the technological relevance, and so my mission on blues shows and my shows that might be along some of these lines sometimes is to keep in mind, giving it the what I see as the political relevance from my political perspective that I generally share with the rest of the organization. And I try to emphasize that to Blue.
Yeah, if you had done that in tonight's program, I might see some merit, but I mean...
Well, thanks to
Rick,
your call, I was able to do that, for sure.
All
Why
right,
don't you
have a
come
good day,
back
guys.
and do your own show, and we'll call in and criticize your show.
Oh, well, yeah, we thank you
Come
for
on,
your
Rick.
call.
In a parallel universe.
In a parallel universe, we'll
Thank you.
be on your show. But thank you for calling.
Hey, thanks.
All right, so let's recap.
All right, hey,
It's been less than 100
Okay.
years since we've had a computer.
Much less than 100 years.
Well, the abacus could be considered a computer, I suppose. So
well, but then
Yeah, I
we're
guess the
going back
Greeks had,
thousands of years.
the
Electronic
Greeks had
computer.
certain kinds of.
electronic computers started at World War II with a guy,
Okay.
Alan Turing.
All right.
They emerged into the IBM computers with the punch card with the guy, Johnny Newman. John Bell took certain inconsistencies, which they call Bell's inequalities, and showed that in order for the universe to work, it has to be interacting on quantum levels, even on the macroscopic sphere. And that's what's really fascinating to me, is that how, as we get closer and closer to understanding this computing with quantum devices and qubits,
Quantum bits.
quantum bits, the reality around us is changing. I hate to say it, but most of us resist change, and because we see that it's dangerous. The Industrial Revolution was an amazing change, and look how dangerous it was to everybody that worked through for it. People were dying left and right in these unsafe
It's still going to wipe
places.
us out. You talk about 10 years.
And if we don't get another understanding of the universe where we can get past all this religious nonsense and nationalistic nonsense and political nonsense.
Just dump all our pollution into another dimension.
Yeah, but also we could maybe, possibly, and this is directly to Rick,
Imagination.
we maybe are able to get past the self-destructive part of ourselves. The self-destructive gene, or whatever you want to call it. The guy in Australia said that we're a drone species programmed for self-destruction. See, and I think what we got to do is closer to what happened in 2001 with the space baby. Remember the space baby at the end of 2001?
Space Baby. Hey, we're going to talk about the never-ending story with the big puppet dragon.
Okay, the space baby, that's when the astronaut who has, he's met the aliens or something, he's returned to Earth, and he seems to become, Dave becomes
the space
baby.
He returns to
larger than the Earth itself.
Because what we're in right now may very well be a larval form of
space baby.
Of space baby, yeah. See, and if we don't get to the point where we can allow the space baby to emerge, if we destroy ourselves and this planet, I think it's going to have incredible political repercussions.
It will.
No
if
space
we
baby.
destroy ourselves in this planet,
So what?
we'll never get a chance to
It'll
be
be
the
like
more
the
alive.
nothing.
Now,
Never
guys
ending
like
story.
Rick, I think, are going to have to stretch their idea of what the revolution's about.
Yeah, he's so one-dimensional.
It's not just about the money and political power. It's about understanding the nature of reality itself. And I think what we're going to do if we keep on this track is we're not only going to rip through these different dimensional doorways, we're going to make it so that we can use quantum transportation, teleportation, to teleport ourselves across the universe. The book that we read,
Well, I think
Transcending the Speed of Light.
That's what the
Mark
aliens
Seifert.
must be using these this kind of physics in order to move through brains, even. Perhaps.
Well, a lot of people, when they see the
They
UFOs,
might be
they
very
say they
close,
disappear.
actually,
They've got
but
some
just
kind of
in another-
cloaking
in a
device.
brain that's, you know,
Think of the cloaking device you could have.
separated by several thousand
You
years
just
of parallel
sides-
evolution.
You could just sidestep into another reality.
Yeah.
No one could see you at all.
You could like rip a little hole in the reality and just dive into it whenever you wanted to disappear. That
Just
could
fold
explain a
time
lot
up
of these,
like this.
These
Travel
weird,
between
appearances and
stars.
disappearances.
travel between stars would become instantaneous. Now, how's that? You know,
3D
a guy like Rick's
print
gonna say, well, how's
historical
that gonna
events.
occur? You know, he's looking for people to come marching through the door or something, and then we're all going to get on the spaceship and to serve man. You know, they're going to come down and haul us away. But I got a different vision. I got a vision of what's going to happen is we're going to understand this stuff. And just like if you ever see that movie, The Little Buddha, with Keanu Reeves, where he is the Buddha and he becomes enlightened, once he sees through the illusion of the world that we're living in, he disappears from the world. See? And where does he go? He goes through the quantum interference phenomenon. He's able to transcend all these different dimensions. Look at Hinduism. What is Hinduism? What is Buddhism? They show in their tankas all these different heaven states. Even in Christianity, they got all these different levels and the steps up to the kingdom of God and everything, and the seven heavens and all these kind of ideas. You know, we're not the first people that thought about it, but we're the first people that have machines that can actually capture the lightning in the bottle. And whether we use it for good or bad, see, there's frightening implications here. If you ever see that TV show, A Person of Interest, where they've got these computers that follow everybody around. They've somehow got...
Oh, you mean like now?
Well, even more so, that nobody has escaped until you could end up with a world just like the Matrix, where the machines take over. What happens after 2030, when the machines become the most intelligent thing on the planet?
They turn us all into tampons.
They turn us into batteries to power their
Machine
machines.
tampons.
Right? Isn't that what happened in the Matrix?
Yeah.
See, isn't that what happened in Terminator? You know, all of these science fiction things are precursors to what could possibly happen in our reality. And probably are somewhere right now. They're probably working
I
on...
think that's entirely possible. We've taled about that
And
on these shows before.
as far as
There are
self-replicating...
indications that may be true.
Is that 1 minute? 4 minutes. As far as self-replicating Autobots go, or automaton, we can eventually get to where we can understand self-reproduction well enough to send machines out that can self-replicate and spread across the universe through machines. Now what if, like in the movie Transference, have you seen that one with Johnny Depp?
No.
Well, he transfers his dying body, which is, what is the body anyway? It's just a husk, that holds the consciousness. And he puts his consciousness in the machines and becomes so powerful he can create new machines and the people can't stop him. See, now, if you want to live with your head in the sand and think all of this stuff is just phooey, there are people that are serious people that are using this information to control our lives.
Yeah.
And we
No
need
doubt.
to be able to understand what it is that they're doing.
They're breaking genetic codes too. Monsanto's using these computers to design food that will poison you.
Yeah, now, I mean,
And make it more expensive too.
Let's think of some of the political implications for quantum computing. What if it was possible to create artificial intelligence that could be indistinguishable from human intelligence and beyond even?
This artificial intelligence would probably spend all of its time creating fictions.
Which is what we do, isn't it?
Yes, that's what we do.
What we call figments of
Ourself is a
causality.
narrative. We narrate ourselves.
We narrate
And in these
ourselves.
parallel universes, there'll be
daydream.
all sorts of narrators.
We dream. It was interesting to me that Rick would bring up the Christian viewpoint because I saw old, who was the guy that ran for president once?
Christian?
The Christian guy down south.
Pat Robertson.
Pat Robertson, get on there and go, Jesus is real. The supernatural world is real, you know. There's half of the people out there thinking that they can penetrate these veils just by thinking about them right now. And here we have physicists that are doing it on a physical level. It's not just dreaming and wishing and hoping and praying. It's doing.
Praying.
It is interesting, you know, and I'm sure unpopular with radical atheists, I'm sure. You know, the whole idea of the brains and spooky action at a distance, the whole quantum, you know, revolution in physics and math understanding is very uncomfortable to them. They feel as if it's not really there.
Okay, folks, we got to wrap it up now. We've had our hour of insanity, and I hope you hung in there. I know.
Return to your homes. Do not think about any of this.
Yeah,
hey,
that's right. Return to your homes and don't think about any of this. Just pretend it didn't happen.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
You've been watching Oh Say Can You See?
If it's never happened before, it's not going to happen now.
Which
We're
comes
down
to
to
you on
just
the
a few
first, the
seconds.
third, and the fifth Wednesday
Any last words, Mark?
every month.
Yeah, the first, third, and fifth Wednesday of every month.
Live from 8 to 9.
And this particular dimension.
And
this particular.
Reruns are every Tuesday
Every
from
Tuesday.
6 to 7 p.m. on this station. But you can find us on YouTube, and I guess you can see us on Dogcast.
And in the infinite subset of fungible dimension.
Well, but Ustream killed off our little archive that we had there for several years.
Why did they do that?
Well, I guess we didn't pay them money, so they killed it. They let us go out of the that particular universe.
They should call it cash stream.
Other time dimension.
At least we're here now.
We've been eradicated from that particular reality.
I think that it's possible that we can look at the man behind the curtain and not be scared.
Yeah, I agree. I think
Toto
people
wasn't
have
scared
to
of him.
not. People have to reverse that trend to dumb down all the political discussion and all discussion.
Well, it's really condescending. They had some condescending. Well, you got to dumb it down.